Thank you so much, BW Applause, for giving me an opportunity to share my experience in the entire stream, what we do. And whatever I'll share and whatever I'll actually try to pose is primarily what we actually do. Just to give a background, in Havells, we do almost 125 plus events in a year. That is what we calculated till, I think, last Friday. And it actually increases by around 25% every year. The reason is because there are a lot of fraternity and there are a lot of propositions that we actually work on the basis of what actually events mean to us. So if you see the value chain in the business that we actually work, events play a massive role, and events play a very impactful role in how we actually look for all these stakeholders, irrespective, right from starting from an electrician to an interior designer or to a customer, that's how it actually works. What we coined last 6 or 10 months back, and I also learned through my particular journey of this, first thing that we need to keep as a principle is stop using the word called B2B and B2C. The reason is we are end of the day, we only involve with people and everything is primarily P2P. It's people to people. It's nothing to do with whether it is B2B or B2C. Because the business happens with people, it doesn't happen with table, chairs and organization and buildings. That is what my... Second thing what we realized, and one of my colleagues, Bhuvan, who is already there, he's he's a data sciences and insights guy. He came with a very fantastic thought is we should change in all our meetings that we actually do. We should stop saying we as an organization. The first center when we draw on anything on the drawing board has to be customer. Whether it is a B2B customer or B2C customer, again, it's a P2P customer, it's people to people that we're actually talking about. That's the second thing that we need to look. One thing which we also discussed with our particular management and most of the people is service is not good or the experience of the product is not good. We never talk about end of the day, the experience of the organization is not good. Because people don't interact only with the product that you actually sell. People interact with the brand that you actually possess in that particular mind. So my discussion today and the point that I'm trying to bring across the next 25-30 minutes is what experiences that we draw, what we have seen as an experience for last couple of years, and how it has actually transformed through our particular learning. I believe in any of the fields in marketing, if you're a person of observation, you are always a successful marketer, because marketing is not about in terms of putting any particular opportunity that can be created or can be put in any textbook. Nice quote which I found and I thought let's put it across. People talk about in most of the meetings and most of the interactions you also do with your clients and all, we need some new ideas. We need some different ideas. Idea has to be different. It has to be very, very different. But the fact of the matter is, we never thought of in terms of any ideas which are even old also, how it is actually there in your back of the mind and how much you've actually utilized. So this is basically a quote that actually talks about in the entire sphere of things. Because idea may not be a good, bad, ugly. It is the implementation of the idea that can actually implement makes much more sense when you actually talk about an idea. Everybody knows and everybody is, I think, just to put a context to it, the times are changing and times have already changed. And just a few examples in terms of what exactly these companies are mentioned are actually selling today. Nothing, only experience. Without having a physical assets, you're only selling an experience. And people are actually vouching for the experience that they actually sell. If you see this particular pyramid that we use as in our thing of everything that we do across, the first thing that we know is what is the center of customer, point of contact with all the touch points that you actually draw. Whether it is learning from the customer, that's most important. Continuous learning from the customer, that's at most important. And how it is actually making a meaningful difference in your consumer decision journeys. Today, if you see, as I'm representing marketing as a fraternity, consumer decision journey are changing, and they're changing very fast. By the time what we have discussed 6 months back, the journey have already evolved. I will just, since the first AV was run for a water purifier, and we just introduced water purifier in just a year back, we did a massive all India research on what exactly is the consumer experience on water purifiers. It was a urban, semi-urban and rural distribution. We cover almost close to around 6,000 plus respondent on that because we really want to know. And fact of the matter is, every 98 kilometers that you travel across the main city, the preference of water purification, preference of water purifier and the need of a water changes. That itself is an insight on its own how the difference is absolutely moving in different tangents. What exactly is consumer looking for today? What exactly is this entire particular pyramid talks about? Everybody wants to make things which are relevant for them, how you can make it easy for them, Because nobody is interested in complex things. Life is full of complexities, and everything is about complexity. How, as a marketer, how, as a particular product offering organization, you can make things which are much, much, much more intrinsic in the entire fact. There was very important, and small gestures makes a huge, huge, huge difference. That's what we have observed. There's one example, it happened in US. One of the guys, he didn't make a mistake, he did a blunder. Without even asking the wife, how can you actually go and buy something? I don't know why anybody in India can actually do that. But he did, and he actually bought an iPad. His wife said, no, I'm not interested in taking that particular iPad. A poor guy, as most of us relate, and I can completely relate to, he went to the Apple store and he said, wife said no. So the Apple guy said, Apple says yes, and we'll return it, don't worry, we understand what exists. The point which I'm trying to draw is, it's only small interventions, it's only small interactions that can actually draw a lot of differences in the entire customer. And we also, as a practice, that we make a huge difference. How does a customer care in our particular organization spoke to anybody, irrespective of the fact that that particular question can be as basic and as elementary it can be. So for example, 6 months back exactly, somebody called and asked, do you have a solar heater? So the customer care guy said, no, we don't have a solar heater at all. So this, why don't you have a solar heater? You have 31 categories. Why don't you have a solar heater? You have everything into lighting. Sorry, sir, we don't have it right now. By when you think you can actually, if I tell you I need 10 solar heaters, by when you can actually get it? Oh, sir, I can't answer. Then why are you here for? The point is, irrespective what the customer need is, and you can't define. Today, customer demands everything. And anything can be defined by a customer, anything. How you actually handle it, small differences can make a huge, if you see in our categories, we start, and our proposition is deeper into homes, which is pre-preparation of the homes, let's from a wire and a cable, to the final functioning of the home, which is your LED panels, your televisions and ACs and washing machines, everything that we actually serve. And you have multiple differences of challenges that actually throw. So one of the customers, and she was quite an aged customer, 3 months back she bought during Diwali one of the biggest television available at that point of time, a 65-inch ULED television. And she has been calling, she has been writing on social media, she has been writing mails to us that this TV doesn't function. So one of our executives reached out to her, but what exactly is the challenge? We have spent so much of money and the TV doesn't function. It's a fake company, you sell Chinese product, I don't care. But what is the problem, man? Whenever I switch on the TV, it doesn't switch on. But what is the problem, man? You come and figure out. So we said, it's fine, she's an elderly lady, and let's go and find out maybe a certain problem. When the guy reaches the entire manual has 2 batteries, 2 cells which are attached to it. She never took on that cells and put it into the remote of that particular TV. And she was trying to switch on for good 3 days. This guy went, gave a good demo, and this lady said, just put me into one of the channels and I want to watch this particular channel every day, so put it on my fast alert. This guy also did this in mirror imaging from the same thing on the mobile, and she was extremely happy. She called on a reception and she said, I want to speak to the head of the services and all. So he's not available. Who is available as the head of the department? So one of the guys who actually attended, I'm very happy, not about the service, but the way this guy came, he sat with me, he gave good 1.5 hours, the job can be done in 10 minutes also. The idea is how connect that you're actually trying to build and how you're actually trying to make. The point which I'm trying to draw is, every small difference that you actually create makes a huge difference in the interaction that happens. Because what happens, once she's satisfied and she's okay, she'll make that particular difference to 10 different other people, how it needs to move to. This is small basic stats that we actually felt, because we also caters to every particular sector and genres of the audiences that look for. Today, people who have a fantastic experience, they will really not stop them from sharing it. And this is the data that we actually collated from millennials, and because we work very closely with a lot of areas on millennials. If there are people who are actually happy and they're trying to contribute to your particular way, if the product can be improved, and we have seen in our particular case. So we launched trimmers around 4 years back. 2 years back, somebody said, your particular trimmer and a Nova trimmer, the price is 5 times the difference. And we can tell you how you can actually look into the entire insights that we have. So this guy wrote a half-pager mail saying an average price that a pocket money that a particular guy from the age of 13 to 18 years gets is somewhere between 400 to 1,000 rupees. If Nova sells at 250 rupees, I will definitely try and buy it because it doesn't disturb my monthly pocket money. But if you sell it some product for 900 rupees, it disrupts my particular pocket money. So please bring products at this particular age group which makes sense to it. It's a very simple, normal understanding. It's a daily usage that they actually do. But if you see from a larger insight perspective, it actually gives you an insight that how particular consumer who is interacting in vocal is contributing to your product journey. Today we're talking about a very high concept called design thinking is changing things. But where does the design thinking actually comes from? The need of the consumer and understanding and observation of what that consumer needs. That is how it actually moves through the entire proposition. If you see what, and in the next particular slide, I'll also quantify how does the entire change and the entire loyalty can actually bring a lot of satisfaction or a lot of business challenges that can actually drop from the paralysis. Customer experience, both in terms of product and services, and it can be across anywhere. The way people communicate, the way the company represent, in every form and factor. It can be a brochure, it can be even a simple sales rep call, it can be your receptionist talking to it, makes a huge impact on what exactly is the experience with the organization. There are people always undermine the value of human capital, which is people who come to face an interview and apply for a job in the organization. People always say, okay, fine, he's a guy who came for an organization, for somebody to join, let him sit and wait outside, he can wait because it's his need. But what image that he's actually trying to carry about your particular organization? That people don't respond in time when they're actually been set for time. If you see for any particular product services, or you see in any particular product categories that you look for, the most important that transform into loyalty and a positive word of mouth. Word of mouth can be of different time and forms and format, but it is what positivity that you can actually build in this particular format. If you see this, bringing the same particular thing, moving from the same thing, if the particular consumer is satisfied, the chances of your particular increase in business is much, much better. Because it's not about he may or may not become a repeat purchase, he can actually change a lot of people from a detractor to a promoter in your scheme. How it can actually change the way the people actually think about you. You may have a negative experience with XYZ brand, but somebody actually makes it and you know, I had a fantastic experience that changed the entire loyalty perspective, and it changed by good number and good proposition it looks for. This is an exercise I was just mentioning about some, and we in Havells extensively follow. There's a process which is customer passport program that we actually follow. And this particular passport program is anybody from a management trainee to an MD of the company has to visit 2 customers every quarter, and it's mandatory. And it is not managed by the marketing team, it is managed by a third-party research agency who actually validates, he finds out which particular organization, which particular TG you have to go, what product discussion that need to happen, and you need to have a stamp from those particular. The idea is very simple. Rather than deciding what customer really we want to sell to the customer, just change the entire particular funnel and see what exactly customer wants to look for it. And that is why today there are very, very few and very interesting insights that actually get from the people is. So we are the #1 fan brand in the country. We sell close to around 1400 crore fan as a category contributor. But we miss very small nuances to it. So when we went for this customer, I think this customer was from Bombay, no, from Ahmedabad, sorry. And this customer said कि आपने बहुत insight कर दिया, decorative fans, non-decorative fans, everybody's fine, but you don't know the basic insights. And I was there as part of doing this. So I said, what was that? So आप जो ये regulator में 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 देते हो, it has no meaning. Even if you put low, medium, high, it has no meaning. Get a remote to a regulator, because जब रात को 2 बजे ठंड लगती है ना, तो नींद खराब करके रिमोट बंद करना पड़ता है. अगर आपके पास रिमोट होगा तो मैं वहीं से बंद करूँ, just like an AC. It was a very, very powerful insight that came from a consumer. That this is actually a latent and a current need that people need. But we are only trying to see how we can actually make the entire regulator from 1, 3, 4, and 5. We did extensive surveys and research in terms of know what exactly customer preferences are. People talk about that experience is the new currency, or experience is the currency today. If you miss out the bus today, then it will be too late for tomorrow to actually find out what you have actually missed it. Some examples which we thought are very close and actually make a difference in the entire thing. Most of the guys you will be knowing about it, but what are the key insights that you actually draw from, let's say from a case from Uber? They talk about experience and elegance. If you go for any particular restaurant, you don't pay anything for the food. The food almost remains the same. The taste may be different around 15 to 20%. But you want to pay extra, it's only about the experience that you actually generate from that particular restaurant or a dining bar or a coffee bar, and that's how it is. Irrespective of owning anything, irrespective of that I own any particular asset in that. But what I'm trying to sell today, I'm only trying to sell a new particular term, which is experiential selling. Nothing else that I actually draw from it. Some more examples, which are quite interesting. I just want to play one particular video which is very interesting, and I thought it will actually make a huge difference what exactly I'm trying to say and how it has actually looked for it. Fortunately, I was able to get this particular guy who actually created this proposition called the opportunities are everywhere. Very simple thing, and they said if you see the DNA of the organization that we actually started, we just see how the opportunity can actually build and how the opportunity can look in different tangents and different formats to look for. And that's how they define the entire platform approaches, that how opportunities can be built across. It's a fabulous example on its own. Make you feel and make you give an example which always say pay it forward. I am ready to pay it today for the gains of tomorrow. It itself is an experience on its own. Once you're hooked into your particular experience and the zone, you will never want to move out in the entire zone. And that is how we as an individual feel, and we as an individual feel how that actually moves from it. Very simple, very thoughtful, but how you can actually make it much more engaging, how you can actually make an experience coming to the life, that was the basic thought behind this communication. Very interesting part, and which I really want to touch upon is, no experience actually come just by doing some of the hooks in the entire thing. Experience and the orientation of the experience has to come from the DNA of the organization. If you see this particular case of Alibaba, they are very, very clear. In their entire organization, it talks about customer first. Consumer first is the approach that we actually need to look for. And that is how your DNA, it falls from top to bottom. DNA doesn't change by only doing some hooks or putting some particular nuts into the different boards. It has been ethos of the organization that I need to service and I need to put consumer first in the entire aspect that I really need to build across. Very impactful and very thoughtful. Even small gestures for an interaction with the consumer makes a huge difference and impact on the business that we actually look for. Can you go to the next slide? Very interesting example of Airbnb. They have very implicitly put it on their particular company's ethos. It is people, places, love that makes Airbnb. It talks about people who makes a huge difference in their particular lives, and how the places that actually bring to the entire impact in their particular life, and that is what we stand for. Very impactful, because since the DNA that I was talking about, if it isn't the DNA of the organization that you really need to have a customer focus, everything will fall in place, because that falls from where actually you need to. What we do normally is we try to fix it from different angles. Okay, let's put the service fine. Let's put the call center fine. But if it flows from every part of the organization and every individual of the organization, it automatically comes, and the feel to that particular customer is immense. One of my colleagues who recently visited on Airbnb properties had a very fantastic experience, and that's also quite an insightful, which I want to share with is, no human interaction and 100% satisfaction. You don't even know whom have you actually met, where do you get the keys, how do you have to leave the keys, what would be actually ready for it, and still it's 100% satisfaction. People say it's a better satisfaction than any of the properties that you actually go for a hotel or something else. Second part to it is, which is very important, the detailed feedback which these guys send across, even right from what was the time that you actually get the keys, till what was the time that Wi-Fi was open, how did you able to run your entire particular, do you find any problem in security? It's such a detailed feedback. The point which we always miss as a marketer, as a community, we think feedback is only we need to take as a pinch of salt. But if you see from most of the successful brands, what they've done from their journey of experience is, every feedback is important, and every feedback has to be worked upon in whatever the light that we need to see. Can you move to the next slide? Any particular presentation without goes, or any particular discussion without goes, putting any example of Apple, most of the people know. But how do you actually bring a true sense of design thinking and experience, and how the product can be, is the best example is Apple. How you build right from a design thinking to other particular means is a fast example that which Apple has actually inculcated 5 years back, which people are talking today in most of the industries. If you see from what exactly is the expectation from a chief marketing officer today in most of the organizations and most of the balances today is, you have to be jack of all trades and master of one. But if you see the challenge today, you have to be master of everything, because you may have boundaries of HR, you have boundaries of service, you have boundaries of customer experience, but end of the day, the responsibility lies with you. How do you actually interact with every consumer? Because consumer writes about the organization and the brand, which impacts every marketer in the entire phase. Today, if you see, there are many, many techniques and technology using AI, ML, deep learning, where you actually know what exactly is the preference of consumer and how he has actually changed it from a detractor to a promoter, or promoter to a detractor, only to the fact that because so much of intrinsic insight that actually go in the entire sphere of things. One of the examples which I come across, I was meeting one of the deep learning organizations, and they're quite rooted in Southeast Asia to do a lot of work on that. So there was a Citibank credit card example, and when I saw the three sides, it was quite scary to understand that you can actually predict a relationship of that particular person, whether he is married or is going extramarital affair, only with the usage of the card. When I actually went into what exactly is the insights that you actually draw, so there are place location, preferred location, out of town location, different location, and the usage of the card you actually predicts what is the nature of a relationship this particular person is going. And it only happens through a deep learning module, which is very intrinsic to what exactly that you need to bring across. You just need to run some Pythons to know the patterns, and which actually gives you an insight in how do you need to draw those particular potential. If you see today, most of the people, and that's what after some point of time, and I firmly believe being as a fraternity of marketing, these designations and boundaries of chief marketing officer will actually move. The combination of marketing would be a chief marketing officer, a chief technology officer, which will actually translate into a chief experience officer. Because today, everybody is getting into so much of technology. Even a consumer is much more far ahead in terms of the technology that you actually book for. For brands, it becomes mandatory and imperative to look into the technology parts that works much more better, that actually gives you a lot of strength in terms of the data decisions that we actually make, and how we can actually drive those decisions across the spectrum or the entire value system that we really need to bring for any of the consumer that we look for. Many challenges ahead from a brand custodian. The uniformity of the communication, the uniformity of the story that we're actually trying to tell is one of the key challenges, irrespective whether we talk about whatever the mediums and whatever the forms and the format that we actually talk about, has to be a uniformity of the brand story that it can't have a different story. It can't have a bystander in XYZ medium, or digital is a medium is only for millennials, I have a different brand story. Everywhere the touch point of the consumer is much, much more higher than we actually think about doing any of the, even beyond our imagination as a marketer. We talk about we are a 2-decade marketer or 3-decade marketer. Consumer is much faster in terms of reaching out in every forms and the format that we actually talk about.